Welcome back, it's Ellie and Lucy from Roman Found, and here we are in the city of Colchester. But it isn't the streets of Colchester we'll be walking down today. Instead, we'll be exploring the Roman provincial capital of Colonia on our latest Roman tour.
We will be visiting some of the earliest, longest and best preserved Roman remains in Britain, hunting down the finest that Colchester has to offer, including one site that is the only example of its kind in the whole of Roman Britain.
So let's get into it and uncover the Roman city of Colonia. Unlike some of the other Roman cities that we have explored, Colchester wasn't actually started by the Romans. Instead, it began life as the centre of the local Celtic tribes, the Trinovantes, then later the Catavilani tribe.
So naturally, as those first 1,000 Roman vessels approached the southeast shores of the British Isles in 43 AD, it was the tribal capital that they had their sights set upon. Where better to control the troublesome local tribes than from their own epicentre?
The Romans took and re-established Colonia as the provincial capital of Roman Britain.
Roman life in the city thrived, and the population became mainly formed of veteran soldiers as the initial military garrison left for the further conquest to the north and the west, leaving behind a colonia and a model urban centre for Roman life in Britain.
None of this original early Roman city that we will be seeing today, for very little of it still exists or remains down to one incredibly violent and rebellious act. For the nearby Iceni tribe had been sorely overlooked and mistreated, especially after the death of their ruler King Prasutagus. He was an ally of the Roman Empire and left his kingdom split into two, half for the Romans, half for his wife Queen Boudica. The Romans resented this, as in their eyes a woman was not allowed to inherit the property of a man, so they simply seized total control and annexed the Iceni tribe. But in 61 AD, Boudica had her revenge and razed 3 important Roman cities to the ground, slaughtering every occupant and leaving nothing behind. Colonia was first on their hit list.
So everything we'll be seeing today are mainly the remains of the second city, the one that was rebuilt out of the ashes of the first and heavily fortified. Starting the tour at Balkan Hill, you can find the first site of the Balkan Gate. We are standing before the earliest and largest surviving Roman gate in Britain, and the main entry point into the city, coming straight off the Roman road from London.
It would have been the west gate of the city, and is so well preserved that there is even a pub situated in the top half of the remains. It is also one of the few remains that we are visiting on this tour that has a link back to the original Roman city prior to the Boudican revolt. You see, it is a sizable gate, a massive one actually, even by Roman standards. Less than a quarter of this original huge structure stands today, as only the south pedestrian arch and guardroom survive. Originally it would have had 4 of these arches, 2 for wheel traffic and 2 for pedestrians. But the reason for its unusually grand size is because it includes the triumphal arch that was built in 49 AD to celebrate the arrival of Emperor Claudius. As the wall was built around the city after the Boudican revolt, this arch was incorporated as part of the main entrance into the city.
Behind the Balkan Gate stands the Mercury Theatre, a theatre named after the Roman messenger god Mercury. It provides a prominent statue of him on the corner of the building. Mercury was actually the patron of all travellers, so it's under his watchful eye that we head through the Balkan Gate on our Roman tour. We find ourselves at an excellent starting point to walk around one of the earliest, best preserved, and at almost 3 kilometres long, the longest Roman town wall in Britain.
The Roman wall in Colchester was built around 65 to 80 AD for the sole purpose of protection and as a direct result of the attack during the Boudican revolt. As well as the 6 main gates into the city, it also would have incorporated between 12 and 24 watchtowers and would have been 2.4 metres thick. Down the Balkan Hill footpath, the grand stretch of Roman wall here is impressive, almost as impressive as it would have stood in Roman times at the grand height of 6 metres. You can trace much of the wall remains around Colchester, and that is what we do, following the trail down to Northgate Street, a street so named as it originally would have housed one of its main gates into Colonia, the North Gate.
Northgate Street takes us through the old Dutch quarter of Colchester and through to our next site. You might have spotted us wearing our Roman Found t-shirts.
So if you'd like to support Roman Found and help us bring you more Roman tours and improve our channel,
all of our Roman Found products are available on our online store. At the end of Northgate Street, we cross into Castle Park, where the wall once again breaks into modern-day Colchester, cutting across the great breadth of the park.
Here you can really see the mixture of flint, fired bricks and stone used in the Roman construction of the walls. This mix of building material is rather unique to Roman Essex, as there was a lack of good building stone like that used in the construction of other defensive walls in Roman Britain, like the ones we've previously seen in York and Lincoln.
Walking through Castle Park, we come to the second surviving remains of the original 6 gates, Duncan's Gate.
Duncan's Gate was named after the man who discovered it, Dr. P.M. Duncan, in 1853. This is a much smaller and less grand gate than Balcon's Gate, and would have only been wide enough for the passage of one car with a guard tower built above it. The fallen masonry that can be seen is all that remains of the arch that is estimated to have collapsed around 400 AD.
Cutting down a passage in the wall next to Duncan's Gate, we head down a rather aptly named Roman road. First Sight Art Gallery is our next stop, and it's just in time as dark clouds heavy with a downpour start to gather on the horizon.
If you're loving our Roman tours, please remember to hit that subscribe button and follow our channel. First Sight is a modern art gallery and community hub that contains and showcases the traces of a much older and Roman community within its modern architectural walls. Inside one of the exhibition spaces, embedded into a glass case in the floor, is an elaborate Roman mosaic called the Berryfield Mosaic that was discovered on the original site of First Sight in 1923 by William Cecil Lewis, the man who ran a market garden upon the land at that time. The mosaic dates to the mid-2nd century and would have been part of the floor in a wealthy Roman townhouse. Its design consists of a central rose motif surrounded by 4 panels depicting sea monsters chasing dolphins.
With the downpour truly upon us, we waited out the weather with some lunch in the cafe and a quick wander around the other exhibition spaces.
Inside Colchester's art gallery, where else are we going to meet our good friend Joe Boyd, resident artist and creator who is currently working on an Instagram collab with us, creating a work of art out of some of our finds. We might even see some of his work later on in this video, but first he just couldn't help himself joining us on our Roman tour and learning more about the city that he grew up in.
Hi everyone, my name's Joe Boyd and I'm a mixed media artist from Essex. I use unconventional materials such as household objects to create abstract works of art. I was actually born in Colchester, but my knowledge of its Roman past is limited. So today I'm looking forward to finding out more about its history and to explore a few sites I've yet to visit.
From First Sight, it's back on the walls, heading round the block towards Priory Street.
Passing through the location of the original Roman East Gate, which would have provided access to the River Colne and the coast, we enter Priory Street Car Park, one of the most incredible combinations of impressive Roman wall and council parking that we have ever seen. After neglect in the Saxon period and early medieval period, which was largely caused by the town wall being used as a convenient source of building stone, important strengthening work had to be undertaken during the 14th century, which led to the addition of 8 medieval bastions to the wall. Only 4 of these survive visible along Priory Street Car Park today. The bastions were added under a programme of repairs that was ordered by King Richard II in response to attacks at Colchester during the Peasant Revolt of 1381.
A stretch of the wall here has been made out of brick, a repair that signifies a breach by the parliamentarian canons during the 11-week-long siege of Colchester in the English Civil War of 1648.
Adjacent to the car park is St Botolph's Priory, one of the first Augustinian priories in England, founded between 1093 and 1100, but rather extraordinarily, it was almost entirely constructed out of Roman flint and brick that was probably taken from the neglected Roman town wall just behind us in Priory Street car park.
So a little bit about the priory whilst we are here admiring all of the Roman materials that make up its ruins.
As an Augustinian priory, St Botolph's had certain privileges over the others in that area, as it had the ability to correct abuses, inflict punishments and prescribe regulations. However, it was a relatively poor foundation with limited funds that was eventually dissolved in 1536 and gifted to Sir Thomas Audley, the Lord Chancellor at the time. It remained partly in use as a parish church until the siege of Colchester in 1648, where a large proportion of the building was destroyed by cannon fire. It is largely the remains of the nave that remain standing today, with grand Romanesque columns of considerable height.
At the grand entrance to the nave, I spotted my eyes only find of the tour and a brilliant example of Roman building materials reused to create this priory. A piece of Roman hypercore tile leapt out at me, set into the walls, its distinctive markings making it instantly recognisable as Roman. Heading up Queen Street, we loop around into the centre of Colchester, passing through yet another Roman gate, St Botolph's Gate. Heading to the Colchester Castle Museum, the largest Norman keep in Europe, is actually the foundations of this impressive castle that has earned it a stop on our Roman tour.
Before the Norman castle was the grand Roman temple that was dedicated to Emperor Claudius. Very few classical temples have been discovered in Roman Britain, and the Temple of Claudius is the largest found. It would have been a huge structure that is estimated to have spanned at least 32 by 24 metres. It would have had 2 rows of 8 columns with another 16 around the cellar where the cult statue and valuables would be stored. The temple was seen by the Boudiccan rebels as the ultimate symbol of Roman oppression, and it was the last stand of the Romans during the Boudiccan revolt itself, as they held out for a 2-day siege inside its walls. The impressive foundations to this temple can still be seen in the basement of the Norman keep, where they stand 3.5 metres above the Roman ground level, as the castle was built over the top of these remains, reusing the Roman masonry as part of its foundations. You can also find several Roman galleries inside the Castle Museum, which house an incredible array of Roman artefacts, from 2 of the most important funerary monuments in the country that predate the Boudiccan revolt, to the Fenwick treasure and the Colchester Sphinx, which once marked a grave. Sadly, we weren't allowed to film inside the museum, so you will have to visit for yourself to see these impressive Roman remains and artefacts.
But you mustn't miss this rather hidden gem of Roman remains in the Claudius Gateway Cafe, which can be found at the castle entrance to Castle Park.
Normally accessible for diners at the cafe, the owner very kindly let us into the back seating area to film the Roman ruins situated directly under the building's glass floor. The foundations of the elaborate central gate that would have been part of the 120-metre long colonnade that led up to the Temple of Claudius.
We have one last Roman remain to find in the castle park, and it can be found at the rear of the Norman keep in the gardens behind.
This rather unimpressive looking assortment of stones is the foundations of one of the 3 grand 2nd century Roman townhouses that were discovered and excavated here in 1920 by the archaeologist Wheeler. The tiny red terracotta cubes making up the floors are the original floors of the townhouse, and the walls have been marked by modern flagstones. Very little of these houses survive today because the ruins were actually used as building stone for the Norman castle itself.
Cutting out of Castle Park and looping back to the Maidenborough Street, we head to number 75, and the site of the Roman theatre. An extremely subtle line of coloured bricks marked out onto the floor. You can see the outline of the foundation of the Roman theatre, which emerges from the corner of St. Helen's Chapel.
St. Helen was the mother of the Emperor Constantine, who introduced Christianity to the Roman Empire. According to legend, she was born in Colchester, and she remains the patron saint of the city, and it is believed that St. Helen's Chapel, as well as being built on the corner of the Roman theatre, was also built on the site of a much earlier religious building. Roman theatres were semicircular buildings where various entertainment would take place, such as mime, orations, dance, choral events, and different types of plays including farce, tragedy and comedy, as opposed to amphitheatres which were designed for grand spectacles, gladiators and wild animals. The Roman theatres were designed for stage plays, but their buildings were still large and could hold a capacity of up to 15,000 people.
But this isn't the only Roman entertainment structure we will be visiting on this tour, as we have a much larger and unique site coming up.
Passing Town Hall on the High Street, we spot Queen Boudica looking down on us from above, the Iceni Queen watching over the new city that has grown on top of the one that she destroyed.
Cutting through Lion Walk Shopping Centre, we're heading towards Malden Roundabout, but can't help spot the various hints and mementos back to Colchester's Roman past, hidden amongst the modern shopping streets.
Displayed on one of the walls in Lion Walk is a copy of part of a 4th century Roman mosaic which was found in 1974. This mosaic depicts a walking lion and was found during excavations on this site, its discovery giving Lion Walk its name. Quite coincidentally, before its renaming after the discovery of the mosaic, Lion Walk was originally known as Cat Lane. The original mosaic is on display inside Colchester Castle Museum, and it is believed that it would have been a grand square mosaic with a central panel and 4 semicircular panels like this one surrounding each side.
Exiting Lion Walk, we get caught in another horrific downpour, choosing to leap into Sir Isaac's Artisan Coffee for some much needed shelter and refreshments.
Refueled and with the rain lessening, we head out of one of the southern gateways of the Roman city, Headgate. We go under the main road, discovering coins along our way, and pop up onto the other side of Malden Roundabout.
You might not ever guess it, but hidden by Malden Roundabout, practically in the grounds of the police station, is a Roman church. And not just any Roman church either, it's actually one of the earliest churches in Britain.
It's only the foundations that can be seen today, but it is believed to have been built around 320 to 340 AD, and the church would have had stone and brick walls, a tiled roof and a dirt floor, at around 24.8 metres long and 7.4 metres wide. During excavations in the 70s and 80s, there were also over 700 Roman graves discovered, and it was estimated that originally there would have been as many as several thousands, but many of them had been lost during nearby quarrying in the 19th century for sand and gravel. Many of the graves were lined east to west and belonged to a Christian cemetery that had actually been overlaid on top of an earlier pagan cemetery. It's an incredibly important Roman cemetery find that shows the increasing influence of Christianity.
Our very final stop on the tour is a little out from the main centre of Colchester and indeed the Roman city itself, so we head down Butt Road and turn left into Locato Road, leading to the Roman Circus Walk.
This rather off the beaten track site is actually Colchester's one-of-a-kind Roman remains. It's a Roman circus, the only one known in Britain, and it's also the largest known public building in Britain. Roman circuses are hairpin in shape and range from 250 to 500 metres in length, consisting of a track running down both sides of a central barrier known as a spina. They were built for chariot racing, a dangerous Roman sport that if you excelled at could turn you into as much of a Roman celebrity as the top movie stars that we have today. Charioteers were actually the highest paid athletes in history.
Until the discovery of this site, chariot racing was only testified in Britain in the form of a sculpture of a charioteer found in Lincoln and a mosaic found at Hawkstow, and on a variety of moulded glass beakers depicting the sport.
Built in the 2nd century and outside the town wall, this circus would have been 450 metres long with seating for 8,000 spectators. The starting gates and position of the racing track have been located, and their base is reconstructed by the Colchester Archaeological Trust, but no remains lie above ground of the Roman circus, as after 150 years of use, it was abandoned with the stone reused for other buildings in town, like at St Botolph's Priory.
But there is an incredible Roman circus visitor centre adjacent to the starting gates that displays and reveals the whole story behind Colchester's unique Roman site.
We have had a great time exploring Roman Colchester and uncovering all the visible traces of this Roman city. If you've loved discovering the Roman history behind Colchester and want to learn about other Roman cities, then be sure to check out our Roman tour playlist, where we travel the country through its Roman remains.
We finish off the day at Joe's studio getting creative with some Roman and medieval finds that we have unearthed metal detecting. If you haven't watched any of our digging adventures, then be sure to check out our channel and head on over to Instagram for our collab with Joe.
Well, thanks for having me today, guys. It's been great fun. I think my favourite part of the tour was seeing the Roman circus, as I had no idea it even existed. Standing within the ruins and being able to visualise the vast scale of the structure was really cool. I'm glad you both got to visit my studio too, but if anyone watching wants to check out my work, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at @thisisjoeboyd.
And don't forget to check out our online store for all the latest Roman found drops. Thanks for watching!